I'm now delighted to be joined by Musetta Vander in the next part of our Mortal Kombat franchise series. So far, we've spoken to Chris Casamata, who played Scorpion in the original Mortal Kombat. We've spoken to Brian Thompson, who played Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. We've spoken to Michelle Lee, who played Melina in Mortal Kombat Legacy. We have spoken to Keith Cook, who's played Reptile in the original Mortal Kombat and played Sub-Zero in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And we've spoken to Darren McBee, who's spoken to Matara. And now I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Musetta Vander, who played the role of Sindel in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I suppose, Musetta, starting off, I suppose Mortal Kombat, it's almost like a franchise, an alumni now at this stage. It's like James Bond. If you're part of it, you'll always be part of it, and you'll be remembered, and still going as strong as ever, as such. And to be part of that sort of Mortal Kombat world, that Mortal Kombat family, is that something even to this day, maybe 20 years on, that you're probably, well, it's not really 20 years on, but nearly 20 years on, that you're still very proud of?
Yes, I mean, who knew it would turn out to be such a enormously popular franchise? You know, it just keeps going, and the fan base just keeps growing, and new versions of it is coming out. So I'm really excited to see the new Mortal Kombat, and it was just an amazing experience to be part of Mortal Kombat, you know, and to play one of these legendary characters.
And I suppose, Musetta, before you auditioned for the role of Sindel in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, did you have any sort of background on what the character? Did you or your research before you played the role? Did you play Sindel in one of the video games to learn a bit about her? Did you have a background script in terms of what the producers were looking for? And when it came to the audition for trying out for Sindel, what did you wanted to bring to the foreground, or what do you think they were looking for that made you get the role?
Wow, that's a lot of questions all in one. All right, so I wasn't very familiar with Mortal Kombat. I mean, I heard of the game, of course, but I hadn't been a gamer myself, so I hadn't actually played her. When I got the audition, I researched the character to see who she was, and I immediately liked her. She was very strong, and I like characters who are strong women. So what made me get the role, I don't know. I think people generally tend to think of me as strong. And when I went into audition, I felt I had a good experience in the room, but you never know. With an audition, you just never know. In my experience, I go in, I do the best I can, and I walk out and I just forget it, so that I'm not tied to anything emotionally with it. But fortunately, they liked me. So I was very happy when I got the call that I booked the job. I was actually in a trailer. I was working on Buffy the Vampire Slayer at that time, and the casting director called me personally to tell me that I booked Sindel on Mortal Kombat. It was super exciting because it was a big movie and we were going to many locations. So I was very happy to have gotten that.
Yeah, and I suppose the character as Sindel, when you did about her research about her, she's probably that sort of queen character. She brings that sort of echelons to her, a bit of sophistication, but a bit of ruthlessness as well. And I suppose Sindel is iconic for her hair. Her that sort of white, sort of long, sort of free flowing hair that causes so much chaos. It's probably her sort of favorite weapon. And just in terms of makeup and design and costume, how was that for the first time when you were sort of dressed up and put together as the Sindel character? And in terms of being in a hairdresser's, I suppose, in terms of your hair, I know it's quite long, but what was that like for you? Was it a real sort of transformation, because you had to go from, as I see now, a blonde or a black or brunette to stone white sort of hair? Was there an awful lot of dye and makeup and the costume itself?
Wow. Okay. So everything was, when I got the role, I stand corrected, but I had short hair.
Okay.
I had short hair. Yeah, because I was doing Buffy and I had short hair at that time. So when I came to London to shoot, we did, you know, a whole fitting for the wig, and they went and got the hair, which is really weird because it's so much hair.
Mm.
So it's really weird when you put on a wig like that, because it belonged to somebody. Obviously, they grew it their entire life to be that long, and it's real hair. So the minute you put it on, it's like you almost feel the energy of the person whose hair it was, if that makes any sense, because it was so heavy, but it was so well done. And they chose to make the hair dark instead of gray, and then put the gray highlights in there. And then when it came to the wardrobe, they were going back and forth on the costume, and they decided to do like a very thin spandex material. So that wardrobe was very, very thin lycra. And nothing like today when you have these villains who have literally like suits of armor, which they fight in. Mine was very thin, so it was literally forming to like wearing a pantyhose in color, which is fun. I mean, I liked it. It was great.
And I suppose, Musetta, you were in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. We all know Mortal Kombat is about martial arts, and there's a sort of fighting. You were probably in the movie. You were probably witness to probably some of the best martial artists in the world on that set with you, in terms of Robin Shaw, for example, who played Liu Kang, probably excellent stuntsman, probably extra. So those sort of choreographics and those sort of fight scenes, did you have any sort of background, or I'm trying to remember any sort of scenes that you were involved in as well? Was there a sort of where you had to do a stand your own ground in terms of fight scenes?
Yes, I did. I didn't have any experience in martial arts. I was a professional dancer in the past. So I was very flexible. I had flexibility, and I was strong, and I could execute choreography pretty quickly. So once I got to, I believe it was Thailand, I learned my first fight sequence, and it was pushed up because somebody got injured, and my fight sequence got moved up to like the next day, like really quickly. So for me, I wanted to do even more than I did. I mean, they were amazing with the stuff that they had there, but I wanted to do even more stuff than I did. But I fought my daughter at the end of the movie, Katana. Yeah. So, we had a lot of fun doing this. A few times for real. She was like, "Oh, you got me there." So I think when you're doing fight sequences like this, you really get into it. Your adrenaline is going. You really get into the character. You're wearing this wild wardrobe. You're in Ayodhya on sacred, temple grounds, and you are fighting like the scene in these outfits, and you become. It influences everything you do. You become that person in those minutes.
And I suppose you are choreographing scenes, but there's also this animation, and obviously Sindel has her own move set as well, and that's probably played into the fight scenes as well in terms of the digitalized sort of thing. But when you saw for the first time yourself, and I think Tatan Soto, who played Kitanya.
Yeah, Tanisha Soto, yeah.
Tanisha Soto. When you saw the finished project for the first time played out in a TV screen, were you sort of taken back by the sort of outcome by it, or did you? When was the first time that you ever saw that actual fight scene?
Wow. Well, the first time we actually saw the fight scene was when we went to the movie screening. So all of us, the whole group. I think it was Robin Shu, Talisa, Sandra, Lynn, and I think Margine. We all went to a movie screening. We went to the opening night of the theater, and we snuck into the back of the theater. So the first time we saw it was with a live audience. So we were in the back. They didn't really know we were there. So you heard the response of the audience. You heard everything, and it's kind of overwhelming, because the reactions are so big from the audience, and these characters come up, and especially because they had such a big fan base, the roars for this one or that one, and the oohs and the ahs, and get him. The audience is very active with the film, which is really fun. So seeing the fight scene for the first time. There's so much happening when you see a movie that you've done for the very first time. It's like you almost need to sit down and watch it again, because there's so much going on, and also you see everything for the first time and you go, "Oh, I wish I did this or that or this, made this better," But it's an amazing experience. It's like I say, it's like with editing. A project's never finished, it's just abandoned. So once it's done, you got to realize, okay, there's nothing you can do at this point to change anything. It's the way it is. but no, I really liked it. I mean, I liked it a lot. I wish Sindel had some more fight scenes in there because I wanted to do some of the fancy stuff like all the other characters are doing. You know, Sindel had a very short fight scene, and I'd hoped that she would fight more. You know.
And I suppose, Musetta, you admitted there you probably didn't know much about the Mortal Kombat sort of franchise. I suppose it was in its infancy before before you got the part. After having the movie and being part of that experience, did you come out the other side as sort of a fan of Mortal Kombat in terms of the sort of the camaraderie as a cast that you got together, but also I suppose that Sindel sort of character, I imagine it probably grew on you as the movie came out, because it's a fanatical character. Every sort of young girl wants to play that sort of fantasy role, that sort of arch sort of villain, that sort of you're human in one sense, but you have these fanatical powers, these superhuman powers. You don't really get to do that every day. I know you've played roles in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and sci-fi, but Mortal Kombat is a bit out there in terms of its scope and its sort of audience, and it has such a massive sort of following. So you are the original Sindel, so people will always associate you with that character.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was amazing to see the response to the movie and the fans, and to play a character like that. That it's very empowering because there's no limits to that character. She's so big, and she's part of Outworld in the beginning of the movie. So you can go as far as you like with the character and make her as strong as you want. And I think that I'm glad if it inspired any young women to feel strong and like fighting like in Warrior, like that they can achieve anything, whether it's men or women. I mean, those characters are inspiring, especially because Sindel overcomes bad, you know, and good ones in the end of the day. So that was great. I mean, I love that, you know, Sindel goes through all this Mortal Kombat and makes a transformation to return to good.
And I suppose Musetta, I asked this to Brian, I asked this to Keith, I asked this to Chris, and I asked this to Michelle. The new Mortal Kombat movie is coming out in 2021. All the trailers are all over YouTube at the moment. It's getting a phenomenal sort of response. Each week comes a different sort of teaser. And I suppose the opportunity came about for you to partake in a cameo role if the producers were looking on. Is that certainly a sort of thumbs up? Would you be bags packed? Would you be first on the plane, on the set for a sort of a role? I think by your general reaction, that's definitely something you wouldn't hesitate to sign up on.
Definitely. I mean, definitely. I know a lot of time has passed since the very first movie, you know, but like, you know, they're immortal. So if the producer or anybody would come back and say, hey, would you like to do a small cameo? I'll be like, yes, I would. I'd love that.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of Mortal Kombat today in the 21st century, we have a new fan base, a new audience, newcomers for the first time who buy the computer game. It's been selling a massive, the comic books all over the world are selling at a phenomenal rate. And with that, obviously, new generation of Mortal Kombat fans, they want to know about the original movies. They want to find out about the movies. So they go back and watch the old Mortal Kombat movies. So in that sense, it's not really dying. It's your movies even today, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. It's been judged by, it's been watched by a new fan base that weren't even born by an awful lot of a new audience, young males, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that probably weren't born in 1997 when you were shooting the movie. So they're seeing you in Mortal Kombat sort of, and for you, how much of a joy is that your movie is even being played even to this day? Like obviously with the new movie being out, Mortal Kombat, people are going to say, what's the original movies? So your movies are probably being watched an awful lot now in the last month or so all over the world again. So you're probably in the limelight again in terms of that. So do you still get recognized, or does people still remember your name even to this day in terms of Mortal Kombat and Sindel?
Mortal Kombat and Sindel, yes. When my hair was dark, especially, people would make that connection with Sindel if they were Mortal Kombat fans. You know, there's a specific genre of people who who would recognize me from Mortal Kombat if you had seen the movie. You know, otherwise you won't necessarily connect me to Mortal Kombat. But when I changed my hair and became blonde, now people they say you look familiar, but they don't really know from where. So it's amazing what hair does. It just changes things a little. I'm the softer version of Sindel.
And I suppose, Musetta, finally now for the last 30 seconds, in terms of playing that character, Sindel, was that probably one of your, I know you've had a illustrious career so far in TV series, and there's all probably characters that you're proud of, but the character Sindel, does that hold a soft spot still even today in your heart? And is it one of the proudest characters that you've played so far, and is something that's probably you probably hold in high regard? I know as actors and actresses, there's some roles that you love playing, and there's some roles that you look back on and say, well, I wish I didn't sign up for that, or that didn't go as well as I would have liked. But in terms of Sindel, was it one of those good experiences for you? And if, as a young actress, if that opportunity came up again, going back to 1996, and you knew the outcome and you knew what was in store being associated with Mortal Kombat, would you have signed on the dotted line again?
Yes, I would have signed on the dotted line again. You know, I think the whole experience working on Mortal Kombat was amazing because the cast and the crew, they were incredible. We really formed like a family unit. You know, I'm still in touch with some of the people to this day. We had a lovely time together, and I think that makes any movie experience memorable. As far as the character go, I mean, Sindel was a fun character. I think I'm infamous for that line, "Too bad you will die," which I think was one of my first day of shooting, or my second day of shooting. So I get a lot of "too bad you will die." If anybody else looking at me going, "Someone is threatening your life," I go, "No, you don't understand." It's Sindel. You know. So.
I suppose, Musetta Vander, on that note, a pleasure talking to you this evening as a part of our Mortal Kombat franchise series, for speaking about your memories of playing Sindel in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And I no doubt you seem to be now a fan of the Mortal Kombat Empire, and I suppose you were probably one of those first people when come January with the popcorn and the soda at the cinema, looking in store to see what the new Mortal Kombat will be like, and if there will be a reprisal of your character in the movie, and what will that be like, and what will be the 21st century of Sindel. And who knows, the producers might be watching, and you already given the thumbs up, so I've no doubt you'll probably give thumbs up again for last time for a cameo role if it was to come about. So pleasure, Musetta, talking to you today.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, take care. Lovely meeting you.
Thank you.
Fight!